And welcome back to Open Studio. Look, the mic is actually on. You have a big little sign right above the mic button now to turn that thing on. Unbelievable. Anyway, thank you for putting up with my poor overdubs on the last two. So here we are. We are definitely homing in on this thing. I was talking to my friend Rob Nussbaum, and his job is to restore and maintain and sell parts for these types of bikes. So it was great. I kind of leaned on him and asked him a few questions about this bike since I don't know anything about it. So I finally got a few answers, which is great. So Rob said the bike is at least 1924, but probably earlier. It's a J or a JD. He couldn't really tell. So it depends on the motor size, basically. So the J had a 61 cubic inch motor, and the JD had a 74. So it's difficult to see from this photo which one that is. But what he said was the front end of this bike is off of a 28 or a 29. So it truly is a Frankenstein bike, which I thought was really cool. Also, by just the fact of the headlight and the horn, it's basically an electric bike. Not an electric bike like now, but you know what I mean. And he also noted that the headlight is not the correct headlight for this bike. So it is truly a Frankenstein bike, which I think is great. So keep that in mind as you guys are trying to come up with a title with me for this. We are getting dangerously close, and I do not have a frame for this yet. So that's the other concern too. So what might happen in real time with you guys, if I cannot get the frame for it by the time I need to film the episode, real time you guys might see a break. Like I might jump to the next Open Studio while I'm getting the frame for this. And then I'll finish it up. So if you're watching it after the fact, you'll see, you'll just watch them all in a row. It won't be, but I figured I'd warn you now in case I can't get that frame in time. My buddy Mark Hamilton over at Source Gallery is going to take care of the frame for this. So I still got to get down there and talk to him. All right, so let's get going. So the shift control here is what's next. These two worn pads. It looks like I've started them, which is good. Trying to decide whether that's airbrushy or paintbrushy. I don't know. Let's try it. Let's start airbrushing it, and then we'll move on. What's nice about some of the worn parts on the metal is match the color on the footrest here. So I can kind of incorporate both, I think, Yeah. And then I'm also checking real quick. Actually, I don't have all the rest of the details kind of done up here. So why don't we kind of start messing with the whole thing? I think that might be the way to go. Yeah. So sorry about the last two episodes. Man, that was crazy. And I recorded them both right in a row too. So I was like, as soon as I was done, and it happened right as I finished. I hit the stop button at the end of the last episode, and I looked down, and I'd recorded them right in a row too. So I looked down, and there it is. The microphone button is not lit up, and I'm like, no way! I cannot believe I did that again. What it reaffirms for me is that I really need to get a good voiceover mic, and that's one of the things that's coming for all this. So that way, not only, and I've talked about this before, not only can I do actual voiceovers on videos that I've done, but in case something like that happens, the mic quality isn't terrible like it is when I have to use my headset or whatever. So again, these are just the tiniest little last bits of highlight on the metal part of this shifter control. Anything I might have missed before I move on, which is good because we want to move on. I couldn't believe how close we are. I was like looking at it the other day, and I'm like, wow, it's really there. And we are on, I think, this is episode 65, I think. It's hard for me to keep track when I'm in the moment. It's always in the editing part that I can get a beat on like where we are as far as episodes. But anyway, yeah, I mean, we're over 30 hours in this painting, which is not, I mean, that's not uncommon for a painting that's you know, this detailed and this involved. 30 hours really isn't that much at all. But still, it's neat since I spread it over the Open Studio thing, and I was only really working on it, you know, an hour to a half an hour a week. I mean, it's been over a year that this painting's been in process. Sorry about the heating system. That's the other thing too, in real time. You are watching this, hopefully, and thank you. But I'm in the process now. It's late 2024. It's November of 2024, and I really wanted to get the new live stream recording area set up in the studio, and that was a goal for this year. And I really, it was a crazy year, and I didn't get to really get that done when I wanted to. I was shooting for the summer to get that done, and it just didn't happen. It was just too much. There was too much going on, and it was crazy. But I realized that, you know, I really wanted it done for this year, for 2023. So I took the leap and started making holes, meaning I started ripping apart the studio, and it's underway. So I don't know if I'll get it done by the end of the year, but I feel a lot better that I actually got it started. It's chaos, you know. It's literally like packing everything up in order to make the changes in the walls down here and that kind of thing. So, but I started, so that's good. All right, again, this is just a that I kind of picked it off of here, the burnt umber, but I also thinned it out a lot, so it's more like just a thin transparent stain, and I'm adding that corrosion in here and there just to kind of break things up. Oh, good. I think that's pretty much there. All right, these controls. So this one here, I don't know if this needs a little bit of airbrushing too. This one does too. So I think we're at the airbrush portion. I'm still over the top about this repair down here from a couple episodes ago. I'm so happy that worked out. Again, like we talked about when I was doing it, it's if that hadn't worked out, it's just a lot of work for something that no one would ever realize. You know what I mean? It was like, it would look pretty much like this when I was done, but it would involve at least another couple hours worth of work to get that fixed, and the blending and the mending and all that stuff. So for that to work out the way it did was just over the top. I'm super happy about that, as you could probably tell. All right. So what I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to, I've got a lot of like color already in here, so it's not going to take much. I think all it's going to take is just a little bit of black. This down here needs a little bit. I could probably do the black across the board. All right. So let's grab some. I'm going to grab some really thin black. So this is the super reduced black that I have. Let me shake this up because I don't use this very much. Hold on. There we go. So what you're hearing was in the beginning when I was shaking this thing, there was, you couldn't hear the little mixing ball because the paint had settled on the bottom. There's so much reducer in this that, that the paint just kind of settles out at the bottom. So once I shook it for a little while, the mixing ball came free, and now it's all mixing up. So this one is 20 to 1, so it's, or 1 to 20, 1 part paint to 20 parts reducer. It's insanely reduced. And the only thing I use this for is for tinting in with black, and very subtly, like on a portrait or something. If I have to just add a little bit of black, like especially on the black and white portraits, I need something that's really, really thin and controllable, and that's exactly what this is. Air valve is sticking on this. I gotta clean this brush out again. It's a little bit of paint in the down in here. So when I press this trigger down and let it go, it continues to blow air until the trigger pops back up. So I gotta clean that out. There's something in there. It's not catastrophic by any stretch, but just annoying when you let go of the trigger and it still sprays. All right. Get this flowing. You can see as I'm starting to put this on, see how like light this is? It's just like, it's like breathing the black on here. Again, it's not something that I use all the time, but in situations like this where I really need a ton of control, this works so well. If I needed to get any kind of coverage though, you know, if I'm working in the dark areas here and I really need to like darken that, it would take forever for me to get there with this. It will happen, but it'll take like dozens and dozens of layers to get down to full coverage. So it's not, by any stretch, it's not for that. It's for exactly this, where I'm just trying to like get in really close and really just staining the surface. So any micro tight details, this is great for too, because you're just letting the paint just kind of build up almost molecule by molecule. You know, it's that thin. The other thing to keep in mind is though, if you do reduce paint like this and make it super thin, you do need a small airbrush like this Micron. If you put this through any other brush, any bigger brush, it's just going to flood out. It's going to make a mess. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And then the other side of it is you have to be patient. You have to be patient with it. If you try to put any volume of this out, it'll immediately spiderweb everywhere. It's just that thin. So again, it's for those times when I really need to slow down and put in just like the faintest amount of paint. The other thing to keep in mind, and I've mentioned this before with over reducing paint, when you over reduce paint like this, you compromise its ability to stick. If I rub my fingernail across this, it'll come right off. Okay, so you have to know that when you do this. You can't tape on it. You can't, you know, you can certainly, I mean, if you want to erase and manipulate it, that's great. It'll definitely do that. But it has very little adhesion. Now the other side of that is, and I mentioned it before, this whole painting is going to have UVLS clear put on top of it. That UVLS will get between these little thin layers of over reduced paint, and that's really what's going to hold it in place. That's what's going to lock it down. It's so thin it just acts like a stain on the surface. You know what I mean? So this, you could certainly, if you sprayed with Wicked Colors and you didn't put a clear on it and you followed the reduction ratios of those paints, that stuff is really almost bulletproof by itself. It's very difficult to get that stuff to move once it's cured. However, if this was your last layer on your Wicked painting and there was no clear on top of it to really kind of give it that strength, again, you could endlessly just scratch this off. And you got to keep that in mind when you're working with it this thin. Which is why Createx doesn't really recommend it at all, because you know it removes that, you know, that great ability to hold on that the Wicked Colors have. So again, you're just kind of not cheating the system, but you're kind of playing with the system a little bit. You're removing one thing, but then replacing it later. You know, you're removing its ability to stick by reducing it so much to get this detail, and then you're reintroducing its strength by putting UVLS on top of it later. So I hope that makes sense. All right, so the Harley, it says Harley Davidson on this footrest, which we'll get to, but we'll do that with a paintbrush. It's the same like darker black color. Again, that's a paintbrush job. I can still just barely, I don't know, I have the exposure up really high, so you guys can't really, I don't know if you can really see it, but you can still see the HD stencil. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank. The HD stencil on there. In fact, let's this paint is too thin for this. I shouldn't do this, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to give it a shot. So remember, way back at the beginning, and this whole painting series was all about these HD stencils, these, you know, these net, I don't know, screen-like stencils. So since I'm at this point, I can line this back up. I can see it through the paint that's on there, really. Line that up, hold that down, and we'll see if the HD stencil has anything to say about those letters. I can't see the letters, But what I've found with the HD stencils too, as far as micro details, you don't really even pick up what the HD stencil can until you spray through it. You know what I mean? So you look at the HD stencil, and you can see some of the details, but you can't really make out all of them. You don't really see what the HD stencil has until you spray through it. Now this paint is a little bit thin for this. I'd rather use a little bit heavier paint on this HD stencil, but I think it's gonna work for what I'm trying to do here. Again, with this super thin paint, I just have to do it in twice as many passes as I would normally if it was thicker paint. Again, because if I put any kind of volume of this stuff out, it's gonna just go everywhere. Let's see what we got. Oh, how cool is that? Can you guys see that? See the letters now? So I just grabbed all those letters again. That's amazing. Even there's like a triangular texture, like grippy pattern on the front. I've got some of that. That's so cool. Sorry, it just saves a bunch of like guessing and trying to figure out stuff. That's why I love these things so much. Oops, put the gotta put the magnets on here underneath, keep it from flying around. Oh, that makes me so happy. It does, because if not, you have to draw it out and then you have to readjust it and you have to get it just right and blah blah blah. But the HD stencil, for 2 seconds worth of work, that Harley's right in there now. That makes me very, very happy. All right, I think that's all I need for the black here. It is going to get darker, but that's going to be like paintbrush and texture and a little bit more airbrushing and stuff. I just needed to get that little bit in. So the reason why, and again, it doesn't seem like a lot, right? Especially on this the shifter control. That's hard to do with a paintbrush, and it took 2 passes with the airbrush. So now that nice little soft center section, that fade is in there just right. So again, that's where the airbrush really excels. Let me work on the shifter control, or the shift control. We'll get this part done, and then that will leave just the foot pad, the footrest, or the pad on the footrest. All right, I should put my glove on for this, since I'll be close to putting my hand on this, which I do not want. I have 80s pop rock stuck in my head. I have Night Ranger rolling around in my head this morning, and I have no idea why. It's not a bad thing. I like Night Ranger, but it's just odd. All right, so we have, I don't know if there were rubber pads on here originally. It doesn't matter, but sometimes it's fun to know. Incidentally, the name of Rob Nussbaum's company is Retro Cycle. They're in New York, and if you get a chance, I will put a link to his some of his social medias in this week's description. But he's definitely, I mean, the bikes they work on are amazing, and they do everything. So if you have a barn find Harley and bring it to him and just want him to get it running and keep everything original, he will do that. If you have a old Harley that you want to look like it rolled off the showroom, he will also do that, and he will do it correctly too, which is what he is known for. So they they do quite a bit. So there's a big motorcycle race that goes on every year called the Cannonball, and no, not like the movie. Well, maybe, I guess some of it's like the movie, but for the most part it's not. So the idea is, and I know I'm going to screw this up, so I'm not even going to try, but basically the idea is you can run the race if you have a motorcycle before a certain year, and I'm not 100% sure of what that year is now, but it's old. They're all vintage bikes, and it's usually quite a distance. It's a long run, and I know Rob's company does a lot of the work on those bikes that need to, because they need to run like they're brand new. Because even when they were brand new, they weren't, obviously today's technology. So running them that far, it takes a special kind of going over. And not to mention, a vintage J-type Harley is a lot of money. It's a lot of money for that bike. So again, you need everything done right. And Rob's company does that, which is fun to see. So if you're into old bikes, it's cool to watch what's going on over there. So this is just I'm just kind of putting in these details on these pedals now that I've got the whole like the tone underneath it is all right with that little black fade and everything. So now I can just start poking in the details on the rest of this. And it's just, the whole bike is essentially a combination of basically yellow ochres and burnt umber and black and that kind of thing. And it's that rusty kind of worn metal palette, which has really been a lot of fun to do on this guy. Going in the wrong direction here. I'm darkening this little spot in here, but it really needs to be lighter, but that's okay. Figure it out. I will figure it out. I need yellow ochre. Do I have yellow ochre? It's over here. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, with all luck, I'll get over to Source Gallery this week and get the ball rolling on the frame. I'm really excited about the frame for this. Again, like I talked about, originally this series all had the same kind of frame. However, this series, this painting's been going on for a year. The entire series has been going on longer than that. So originally, I had kind of this plan to have all of the paintings in the same frame in case they ever hung together. That is not going to happen with this series because the paintings that are done from this series are actually already sold. They're gone. So it makes each one individual now, where yes, they're still part of the series and they'll always be part of that series, but they'll never hang together unless, the owners kind of get together. So with this one, I broke off. I do have the frame for it, or the original frame, but I'm not going to use it for this painting. Plus, you guys, I told you the story about custom ordering these frames and then having them come in the wrong size. So I'm okay to get away from it. So this one will have a bigger frame, and yeah, it'll be more, which is what it needs. This painting definitely needs more. All right, so there's the first one. Well, the front side. The back side's actually even easier because it's almost already done now. I just have to really tighten it up. So we'll get the shifter control done in this episode, and then we'll start working on the footrest on the next episode. And then, like I said, once we get there, this painting is pretty much done. We're looking at literally like only a couple more episodes. Now, the couple episodes for painting, I am going to include you all in the framing because I think that's also important, very important, to the whole painting. And again, the idea is you want to, with these open studios, I want you to be here from the moment I pull it out of the wrapping, the ampersand board, to the moment it hangs on the wall. So, and that's, that obviously includes the framing. We'll have to switch cameras for the framing though, because I don't do the framing at this bench. I do it at the workbench, but that'll not be a problem. I say framing when at this point, since the frame is actually being made, it's a custom frame. Really, it's not framing. It's more just like assembling at that point for me. I'll kind of show you how you can put these things together, and it's nice. Once kind of how they get put together correctly, as far as being archival and all that fun stuff. It opens up all kinds of doors for you. Then, for your artwork, you're not just going to, the hobby store and picking out a frame and then just kind of jamming your artwork into it. You can go to a custom framer and say, hey, I'd like to order a frame, but I just need the frame. I'm going to put it together. And most framers are really happy with that. They're fine. You know, everyone wins because they still, you know, make whatever they need to make on the frame, and you know, they get a new customer because if you're an artist, you're usually producing more than one piece, so they know you'll be back, and then, you know, you have control over the way your art gets put together. Again, you should find a framer that you respect and like what they do, but in case, you know, you want to do it yourself, it's a nice thing to be in control of that. You know, you really know what's going on with that. All right, so that's done. Ish. Yeah, that's done. All right, so let's get the, they're like these little, little dimples that stick up. I've got them on the front one here. So they're also on the back one as well. Again, I don't know that this wasn't just plain metal all the time, or if it had, you know, rubber pads on it. Either way, it doesn't really matter. Because there they are. All right. Yeah. We still have a few minutes left. So what we're going to do, since those are done now, they're ready to go, ready to rock. Actually, not quite. I want to clean up this edge. This edge is really smooth. There we go. But I'm using black anyway, because what I also wanted to do was the bottom part of the footrest here is pretty much black. So I want to get that edge down, since that edge needs to be really sharp. Again, I'll probably end up hitting this with the airbrush as well if it's not smooth enough when I get there. But again, this is all about the edges right now. Pretty sure I used the stencil on this one to get it nice and sharp, but that's good. So I'll just fill in the inside a little bit. There's a fingerprint here. I can tell because it resisted right there. Good. Okay, so this top side needs to be cleaned up too. So this is all prepped for next episode. So I'm going to turn this upside down so I can get a good run at it. Now this isn't quite this line. It needs to be tightened up a little bit, but it doesn't need to be straight. Like, I don't want to use the ruler to get a straight line across, because the rubber that's on there is kind of like worn and wavy. In fact, it's missing in the back. It's only the front part of the footrest has the rubber on it. So so I don't have to make sure this is perfectly straight across. In fact, I don't want it to be. So we'll just kind of run it across like this, and that will tighten up that line, meaning make it a little bit sharper. I'm probably going to have to do that again because I'm going to be airbrushing kind of that yellow ochre dirty color on that at the beginning of the next episode. But that's looking really good. Looking really good. I'm happy. That shouldn't be there, so we'll take that out. Feeling this needs to be tighter too, so we'll tighten that up a little bit. The edge is where I'll always find fingerprints. You know, when I pick it up, like when I go to move this thing, I won't have my gloves on, and it's amazing how, you know, like just a little bit of that oil from your fingers will act as a resist to the paint. That'll happen especially when the paint is really thin. Like if I have this really reduced, the little bit of oil will act as just kind of a repellent for the paint, and it almost always happens on the edge because that's where I grab it. You know, ideally I should be conscious enough not to touch the painting at all. You know, put on gloves whenever I go to move it, but the reality is, you know, I'm lazy. It's just the reality of it. All right, we're good. So we're going to hold it there. When we come back next week, we're going to just, I don't know that I can knock out the whole thing in 1 week, but I have a feeling I can knock it out in 1 week. So about a half an hour left in this. So I think we're in good shape. And then this painting is going to be done, folks. So you've hung in there long time. So I appreciate it. And yeah, we're going to get through it. So great. So I'm Steve Leahy. This is Open Studio. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. And if you want to support the channel, you can become a member here. You can throw a super chat. You can't do that on non-lives, but you can throw the thanks in there if you want to. That really helps things out. And but again, the free way of just liking and subscribing and sharing this goes a long way in helping the channel out. So all right, I'll catch you guys next week. Take care.